Mattie Mondays. Where we do music in different ways. I guess friends ain't be dropping gems. Always keep it genuine. Knowledge, power, and some funny. Every week, every Monday. Pure, real, and honest. Tap in, leave a comment. You're tuning in to Mattie Mondays.
All right, so we are here with one of my great friends of over a decade. Well over a decade,
Yeah,
actually.
well over, yeah.
Yeah, well over. I like to keep it there. Eventually, we're gonna be like 2 decades.
No, you're right.
We're close though, but Dexter Adams. So
What
thank
up?
you for being here, my friend. Um, a father now in this world. Um, and my guest here on Mattie Mondays. Um, so can you take a moment to introduce yourself to the room?
Yeah, of course. First of all, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do this. And asking me to do it. Obviously, you know, we go way back, and I appreciate, all of the things that we've done. I just was like, we were speaking right before the interview, before you hit live or record. I've always appreciated your creativity and how you've sort of walked into your gift. I think that's admirable, and that's really how we became friends. Obviously, we went to NC State together and ran track, and that was what brought us in the same area,
Yeah.
same room. But finding out that you like music and we're creative, and that I like music, we had some really dope sessions, like creating some cool stuff. I still sing some of those songs, which is crazy.
No,
Some of
same.
those, yeah, some of those words, like, they come back to me. I'm like, man, that was actually some good.
That's some solid stuff.
Yeah, that was legit. I mean, the recording. I mean, we could have been better quality, but the actual song itself was pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a dad, like you said. Uh, been married for about, going on 15 years now. And my daughter's 10. Actually have a boy on the way. We just found out the sex not too long ago, so I'm excited about that. And what else? I'm creative. I like to use to say that because it's all encompassing. But I do
Yeah.
a lot of creative things. I'm a brand consultant. I create websites. I'm a web developer. I'm a creative designer. Lots of things. So that's it. I don't want to bore you with the details, but that's
It's,
the
it's
gist.
super dope. It's super dope.
says Mattie.
Nah, it's true. It's very true. Um, all right. So spotlight on you, Mr. Father of 10 years now.
Yeah,
Um,
crazy to say that.
take us back to when you first started, when your first daughter, young lady,
Mhm.
um, was expected to come into the world and what that journey was like.
You mean like when I found out, or
Yeah, from when you found out to just that process and that experience.
the process, like moving into it, is crazy because we were people. When you say young now, is different than when we decided to have a kid. We were actually, I want to say, like 24, 25 years old, and
Yeah.
we got married at 24, 25. So no, it was, let me see, we got married at 24, 25, and had my time's off. Tiff probably gonna yell at me because like my time all off. But I think 26 is when we had Corey, which is young. Like now, I mean, people don't have that first until like almost 30. So like, because career and all those other things. So back then I didn't realize it was young, and it just felt normal because we've been married for a year and some change, and we were actually trying to have a kid. And so when we found out, it was some excitement, but it also was like, oh shoot, we we actually gonna have one. But it really was surreal. The whole pregnancy. Obviously, Tiff, went through all of the things a mother goes through when they're pregnant, and I can't speak for her, but like as a dad, I was ignorantly immature, not in a negative way, but just like I ain't never did it before. I only seen um it on TV and people around me. Obviously I didn't see my mom pregnant because I was the last, and you know, I just heard how she felt when she conceived and all that stuff, and so I only had the stories, so I didn't know much about being a husband of a pregnant woman, let alone a dad. So like it was a lot of growing up on the job, like trial by fire. So
Yeah.
it's like the excitement was, I think it's like a sort of a nervous excitement, like, oh shoot, I'm really doing this.
No
And
take
then
back.
yeah, exactly. And then we found out it was a girl, and then I was really like, okay, this is for real, for real. I
Mm.
really don't know what to do. Um, yeah, but it was, like I said, it was a nervous sort of excitement.
Heard that. I like how you presented that. So in these last 10 years, and we could batch it all together. How has your evolution looked? How has being a dad changed you from that young man to 10 years later?
Uh, I think you realize early on, this comes with being a dad and being in a relationship too. You realize how selfish you are, and again, this is all um a person with the best intentions at heart, but realizing as I've grown, that I was a selfish person. And to some extent, still, I think you have to be a little bit, but to some extent, are still selfish in ways that am consciously trying to change a little bit. But like that was the biggest thing I noticed, because it was such of a culture shock for me. Like going from just like, okay, first it was okay, I got to figure out how to be a husband. We doing this and we doing that, and how to like put my feelings aside sometime and worry about somebody else's, like just those things. I mean, even in being in relationships, you just didn't have to. I mean, it was like you did it because it was cool to do. But I mean, at the end of the day, we ain't really like married, But like when we got married, and then she got pregnant, and then when the baby came, it was like, dang, I've been selfish.
Mm.
I'm mad because I can't do this thing right now because I got to go do this with my baby, or I got to go change a diaper. But I really want to sit here and watch the rest of the show, or I want to do this thing. And that's early on, when you're young, still in your 20s, there's a whole lot of stuff you still want to do. Not to say that it was a bad choice or anything like that, but it's just, when it doesn't matter what age you are, when the baby comes, it's like the realization that life changes. Like,
Yeah.
and so that was a big thing. So the biggest lesson, I guess, from then to now is that my title changed from Dexter Adams, the you know track athlete, or Dexter Adams the artist, or Dexter Adams the musician, or Dexter Adams the whatever,
Yeah.
to just dad, like, and uh obviously husband too, but like when it became that, it was like, okay, I got responsibilities that aren't just taking care of a kid, but it's actually like being an example,
Yeah.
um to a kid that maybe can't even speak yet, but like, um, lots of things come into play.
Uh, no, that is real, and that's very very honest.
Hmm.
That like life. I guess in my words, what I heard you say is you realize and kind of struggled through, or
Hmm.
I felt a little resistance of, okay, this life isn't just me anymore.
Yeah, it hits you like it, because like I said, I've never on purpose been a selfish person,
Yeah.
but like when those things happen, you're like, dang, like this bothers me because I really want to do something for me,
Yeah.
but now my time and my who I am revolves around this whole new life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Within that, what would you say is or some of the biggest challenges you've encountered? Is that the biggest, or are there other
No, no.
things?
I think the biggest challenge is and this is one I talk with my wife about all the time, is we call them, and maybe it's not just a black community thing, but like the family curses. The things you explicitly know are not things you want to pass along to your kid. Like those things are those are the toughest ones because it's most of them are subliminal, like they're subconscious, like, and we don't even know we're doing them until either you get some outside assistance through therapy, or you have those blow ups, those moments where you're like, okay, what happened, and then you go back and sort of self-assess. But like I think that's the hardest thing, is like things that weren't the best things that my parents did, not taking them and using them just because that's what they did. Like as people, we go, okay, this is what I've always done. This is what I was taught. I'm gonna do it because this is all I know. But then as parents, you go, my dad, my mom did this to me, so I got to do this with my child. And that could be a number of things. But when you realize you don't have to, and you realize every kid is different, they're a person with a personality, and it's not a blanket that you just cover every kid with. Like it's a different one. It's a tailored outfit. You got to actually tailor it to the kids. So like that's literally the hardest thing, and it's day by day. Like this person coming into their own, you got to pivot, and you got to be flexible, and how you really, it's the best word to put it is manage their life, because you don't want to be overbearing, because then you become a tyrant, so to speak. And a lot of times our parents were that and didn't realize they were, and that's just based on ignorance. Not like I said, not negative ignorance, but just not knowing. So that's the toughest thing. It's being different and then not feeling bad about it. Like when people, or when you think about societies, what my grandma say, well, what my mom say, if she saw me like giving in to, this thing, or not doing it this way, or not pulling out the switch because of this, or not grounding them because of this, or the opposite of, like positive reinforcement. Like that wasn't really a thing. Like we didn't really get a whole lot of positive reinforcement. It was mostly like, don't do that because I said so. So that's the toughest thing.
Nah, that's real. Or did you have the experience of moments where you felt and you were in the real time of doing things the way you were taught and your parents, and you kind of caught
All
yourself
the
in the
time.
moment? Yeah,
All the time. I mean, I think that's the way you. I think that's the way you realize you need to change, because a lot. Unfortunately, you get into a point where it's like you're in a rock and a hard place, and something's got to be different, because it's like you've been doing this thing, and it's just not working. And I think in our community, we talk. Let's just talk about chastisement and admonishment. Like as parents, a lot of times when we were kids, you might have got what they call spanking, but we got a whooping, for doing something that you were told not to do multiple times. Now, not to say that Corey didn't get chastised that way for a period of time, but I think at probably 6-7 years old, we realized she's cerebral, like she's super smart, and she's resilient. Like as a level of for lack of better words, punishment that she can take, and she just gonna do her own thing. She's like, oh, I can deal with what's gonna come, but I'm still gonna do what I want to do. And so we realize, okay, if that's the mentality, we gotta rethink it. And to the detriment of holding on to a family way of doing things, we were like, let's do it a different way. Let's sit down and talk to her. And the stuff that came out of those conversations, even at like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, was like, wow. All right, yeah, we gotta do this different, because we owe it to her, and to her, to who she will become.
Yeah. No, that's I had a thought. It's trying to run away from me. Oh, there it is. Okay. So what's dope and what I'm hearing you say and what I've heard in some of the conversations that I've had with our parents, is that you had to accept and lean into the reality that the best route was creating your own culture in your household and
Yep.
and as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. I think if when I give advice, I try not to give advice to people that are a little bit older and wiser than me because obviously advice is good, but like when it's received well, I realize it's younger people who are at steps that I was at 5, 6 years ago, 10 years
yeah,
ago. I'm able to say like don't do it by a template. Like don't do it because it's what you know. You got to experiment. Like you gotta try different things and you gotta be willing to be flexible. And sometimes you gotta, you know, push your pride aside because as parents, you get to a point where it's like, it's because I said so. In your mind, you feel that way, but it's like, no, she's smart enough to know, the reasons for things. Then I can't just say that. I gotta
yeah,
like explain why this isn't a good thing to do. And if I can't explain it, then is it really not a good thing?
yeah,
And I can't tell how many times I went to like Google or hopped on like Wikipedia or something like just to look up like can a kid have caffeine or why can't they eat chocolate past a certain time or should like certain things that's just like that have just been common knowledge.
yeah.
You gotta like actually know why. Like and she's like, oh why?
Right.
And at first you get kind of like because I said so. After a while you're like, no, this challenges me. Let me figure out why too, so I can actually know.
Yeah. And that's a good way you phrased it, like putting the pride aside.
Yeah.
Cause you can't, we've seen our peoples, our parents or our elders flare up at
Hmm.
us when we
Hmm.
when we what they perceive as challenge
Yeah.
with questions
Hmm.
and wanting to understand um in what we know from what we've seen behind us um
Hmm.
and before us is that the culture overall is changing. Like, my brother got away with a little bit more, or there was more flexibility and openness, we
Yeah.
had a lot. Don't get me wrong, especially compared to my older sisters,
Hmm.
my older sister, and and my mom and her siblings mainly, which was a big distinction. They didn't get to talk back. They didn't get to ask questions. They weren't in the room with the grown-ups.
Hmm.
Um, so that the culture overall has really, really changed. And looking at my niece and nephews, much, much more different. But with our evolution, when we lean into it, it does allow them all the negative things we could say about their generation. They are very smart, and I think
Hmm.
they are better in the areas when we allow of expression, which I think is a strength.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said it being very smart. Like what? And I hate this. I mean, I feel like every generation can say this, but like what they have access to gives you as parents you have to have more responsibility over what they know that you don't
Yeah,
know they know.
yeah,
Like that's the biggest thing is and as parents we realize that our parents didn't know what we knew, but they ascertained what they thought we knew. Like they were like, okay, I know you think this, but you don't know, you don't really know. But sometimes we really knew.
yeah,
But we didn't have the opportunity to have the conversation like this is what I know and this is where I got it from and this because it was just like you said, don't ask questions, don't say nothing back, just do what you're told. And that
yeah,
was the household that I came up in. Obviously we could communicate with our parents, but like when it was time to like do what was told of us, it wasn't a whole lot of talking happening.
yeah,
But whereas like now the access that kids have, you got to assume they know not more than you, but you got to assume that they know,
yeah.
a little bit about what they're asking about. And so you
Right.
go, so now it's not, the conversation isn't like, nah, babe, that's not, we don't want you to do that because I don't think it'll be good for you. That might be the start of it, but it's, and it's probably not good for you because, you know, it's not that we don't trust you, it's because we don't trust the world. And this is why we don't trust the world. You hear about the little girl that does, and then you have to go into like examples. Obviously, putting kid gloves on it, but like they have to have something to be able to compare it to, because they're gonna go find it on Google, they're gonna find it on YouTube, they're gonna find it somewhere. Whether you have blocks on the things that they use or not, they're gonna find it because they go to school and they talk to other kids, and it's just that they have access to everything.
Yeah, you cannot put them in a bubble.
Right.
And that conversation that you just kind of laid out as an example sounded just like one I was having with my niece.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is why your mom said that. And I did my best not to get too dark, but I was like,
Yeah.
these are the ways that things can go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? This is what she knows. So it's better for you to feel a way towards her than her risk being responsible for these possible outcomes, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But she understood. And
Yeah.
she's 12. She'll be 13 later this year.
Man, I'm yeah, I'm not. I don't say I'm not looking forward to. Just. And again, it's not with my own kid. It's just what happens, at that time around your kids that is like nerve wracking. Like, man, they turned 13. This is what these conversations gonna start having. This because I was a conversation I had. So you got to be.
You know what you and your homies was talking about,
right. So you got to be ready for that. So
yeah. No, it's it's interesting times, but it's really dope that you guys are leaning into that, like making the environment the best for your twin, for your daughter.
Right, I know.
Yeah, and understanding like who she is and what she needs and how she needs it.
Yeah, and I my advice as a dad to other men probably is, like, don't be afraid of like talking to somebody, even if it's like solo, like you having a therapy session with someone, or as a family you do therapy. Because you don't know why you are the way you are. You might think you know. But you haven't answered the questions that somebody who doesn't know you might ask. Like even your family, they're gonna ask questions that you're familiar with because that's y'all came from the same ecosystem. But like somebody else might ask you something that really makes you think. Like, when my mom and dad passed, one of the biggest things was like, because they were their health had declined a little bit. This was a relief that they were in a better place, but two, the stress of having to take care of your parents at a young age is hard, especially if you have at the time a 1 or 2 year old kid. It's just a lot. And so one of the biggest thing I realized, obviously, that you have that part and you have the grief and you have all the stages of mourning or whatever. But then you start to think about your life. Like you start to reassess all the things that they taught you, what you learned, and then that's the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah.
And then you go, this maybe wasn't such a great thing, this thing that right here, and this thing was really good because it made me feel this way. And sometimes you don't feel those things until that person isn't here anymore, because then you really have like it's just sort of like it's hard to explain, but it's just there's no limits on what you're thinking now. Like it's just like there's a certain amount of respect that they command that you don't ask certain things, or you don't even think a certain way, because it's like my mama smacked me because she thought I thought this, but like the thoughts I've had, and not negative thoughts per se, some negative, some positive, but like about things that they did. It just causes you to reflect in a way that maybe you hadn't before. You ask questions, that only God can answer sometimes, but also some that you can answer yourself that you maybe not have ever thought about before. And as a parent, what that looks like is, well, this is what they did to me. And sometimes you might be in the act of about to doing something. That didn't sound right. You know what I'm trying to say? You might be in the act of doing something. There's a whole lot of words I put in. You might be in the act of, doing something, and you go, dang, this was what made me feel this negative way. Like, I can't do it like this. So you pause and and I can't tell how many times I've come to my daughter and been like, babe, I know that it was like this, and I'm sorry. I was, I was doing it the way I thought I was supposed to do it, and you gotta forgive me. Sometimes I get a little frustrated when you do X or when you do Y. You gotta be patient with me. And then sometimes you ask questions. what is the thing that you don't like that I do, or what
Mm,
caused you to react to the thing I asked you to do this way? And sometimes it's like, well, I didn't like the way you raised your voice. I really don't like when you raise your voice. Sometimes if you just do it this way, it sounds better. And I'm like, oh, like think about if you said that to your parent. Like
right.
they might have been like, well, I don't care how you think it sounds.
Right.
You know what I mean? But like, I really was like, that's real. Cause I'm
Yeah.
like that. I don't want you to say it to me in the negative way. If you say, for instance, like if you are a forgetful person and I'm like, Mattie, did you leave the lights on again? That
Mm,
might feel worse than if I was like, babe, don't forget. Sorry, I'm thinking of my wife now, but Mattie, don't forget to cut the lights off before you leave.
yeah.
You're like, okay, yeah, because I definitely forgot. But like one felt so much better, right? Than the other. And so now I think about that when I'm talking to my daughter about just everything. Just have a conversation with her like she's just the person that she is. It's like, babe, don't forget to brush your teeth. Not, did you brush your teeth? Sometimes I slip up and I'll see her look at me like, you
That's
know,
right.
yeah, yeah. But it's a learning process day by day.
No, that's beautiful. Um, yeah, and even I know naturally, but it's really cool to hear you speak of like your growth and be proud of it.
Hmm.
Like from a little person that's helping to grow you. That's dope.
Yeah, man. I think, shoot, I guess that's the biggest realization of being. I ain't gonna say that because a lot of grown ups they ain't about no growth. They just about being who they are. But I
You have
mean,
control.
yeah, I don't know. So I think that's when you really realize you to yourself you actually growing when you actually care about what you might have been scared to say was a weakness, or what might be perceived as a weakness. You just it's easy for you to say it now. I think that's the biggest sign of like growth is being able to talk about it.
Yeah, no, that's I love the maturity in like what you're painting, the picture that you're painting for us, and the growth and the suggestion and advice for other fathers.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess on the same coin, like asking for themselves, um, being cognizant of the other fathers around you. Is there much conversation from father to father, like in real time? Like how do you guys like handle that, or is that a thing?
Oh, you mean like my peers?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, I have a brother who's only a
yeah,
year and a half older than me, so we talk all the time about being dads
awesome.
and men in this world, and even uh, the effect that the men in our lives have had on us, negative and positive, and actually iterating it to each other, man. Like yo, when this happened, it really made me feel like this. And then him going like, yeah, man. And I realize now, when I'm talking to EJ, it's his son, this is what I gotta do, and then me going, yeah, yeah, I realize now, we're having a little girl, when I raise my voice, it actually feels like this to her, and I have to do it, like, so it's
Yeah.
those conversations you have. And then obviously with the older um men in my life, my granddad at this time, and then like, some other influential men in my life. I had those conversations, and they kind of give me that the parental, like, you're doing good, and don't forget this thing, and don't miss this opportunity to take the time and actually enjoy. And I mean, when people have said that, it always goes in one ear and out the other, because you're like, I am enjoying it, but then like 3 years go by, and you're like, dang, I wish I could go back to when she was 4 or when she was
Oh,
6. And you look at photos, and then you like, in the moment, it's crazy because you're like, you only think about, man, she getting on my nerves. But like,
I'm tired.
it's, yeah, all the beautiful things that kids do at the different ages. Is like, you really gotta take a lot of photos, man, and do a lot of videos, because that's the only thing that helps you kind of like capture the moment.
Yes. Yeah. Great point. Definitely videos and photos, real
Hmm.
time reflection.
Hmm.
Yeah, and capturing those vibrations again.
Yep.
All right. So, even more specifically, how did becoming a dad, a father, change your view on the world and people? Like once you had this life, and
I
you
think
know,
if I think at first you have a very pessimistic look on what the world is because you're trying to protect your investment, and I don't mean that financially. I just mean the thing that you've been entrusted to make sure comes into fruition. This person, so everything around you is a threat to that, and so
yeah,
you look at it that way.
yeah,
So that's the first. I think that's the first instinct. Is like, no, 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 no. We're gonna stay away from that. No, no, no. We can't do that. Nope, no, no. Let's stay over here. And then eventually it becomes guidance and like, um, advice while they're doing some things that maybe made you a little nervous at first.
yeah,
Um, and then it's fully trusting your leadership and realizing that now that they have become their own person. We're not quite there yet, but she's getting there.
yeah,
Now that they're on their own person, they think for themselves and they can make the right decisions. And then they just come back and tell you the decisions that they made, and then y'all can kind of like we can kind of have those conversations. Okay, I wouldn't. I may not have done it that way, but I mean, I like the way you did that. Actually, not a bad. It's not a bad decision,
yeah,
So you realize their own person at that point. But I think those are the stages, and I think that's where how it's sort of um, evolved over time from like I said, being pessimistic. My outlook on the world now is just like, I'll be completely honest. I'm very optimistic. Obviously, there are things that cause me fear,
yeah,
but I've really been forcing myself to live on the self-fulfilling prophecy, sort of like speak it into existence side of things. So when I think of how exceptional my daughter is, um, the sky's the limit for really what she can become. So it's my job really just to nurture everything she finds joy in, and
yeah,
just like, yeah, just do that,
uh,
do it.
yeah. That's awesome, and that's like a common. The way you broke it down was, especially in those phases, is really neat. But yeah, that's the common answer, and it kind of feels like or seems like 'cause even as a I guess a non-parent but a steward in ways of other kids,
Mm-mm.
um, and teaching and coaching and being a auntie,
Mm-hmm.
it does seem over time you kind of loosen the reins a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you go crazy if you didn't. I mean, you really would. Like,
Mm,
it's just you can't be everything and be everywhere at all times for your kid. So like at some point, my daughter and I have had really long conversations on some super deep topics. Like,
yeah,
I mean, as lighthearted as like dolls and what's her favorite color to you know sometimes she feels like she's a she's actually living in a body in a dream, but real life she's somewhere like in another dimension, like to that deep and that like abstract. So like when you realize a kid's brain is like so uh I don't know, it's advanced. So
yeah,
like I have those conversations, and we both, Tiff probably more than me, encourage her to really just like you know explore it all.
yeah. Oh yeah, she's definitely she's brilliant. That's
Yeah.
cool. But that's the culture that y'all have created too. I
Hmm.
definitely believe we come with our personalities, but our our caregivers, our nurturers, either suppress it or make room for it.
Yeah, that's deep. That's really deep. Yeah, your personality is set in stone.
Yeah,
Um, but you know, how you use it, like you said, it can be affected on by the people around you,
yeah,
especially your caregivers. That's deep.
yeah. I think that's dope. I think that's dope. But I already know you're an awesome person, so it doesn't surprise me. Um, it doesn't surprise me at all. All right. So you brought up and spoke about just advice to men, and then
Hmm.
which led us to to talking about your interaction with other fathers, your from your peers to I guess more so mentors.
Hmm.
Um, what about community in general? Like how has that what does that look like, and how has that affected your journey? Like as far as the strength of it, or in ways that it could have been better. What has that looked like for you over these last 10 years?
When you say community, what do you mean?
Um, Family, friends,
Oh,
people that you're having to interact with um while as you were, doing
I
each
see what you're saying.
year, each
Yeah, yeah.
phase.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I think, it's been quite a few different stages
Mhm.
of at least the last 10 years of my daughter's life. You
Yeah.
know, the 10 years of her life. You know, when she was born, she was almost one when I lost my mom. So part of me was heartbroken that she didn't get that guidance. But she still had my father, and then she had her grandmother and grandfather on my wife's side, and she spent a lot of time with them, which was awesome. As far
Mhm.
as far as being a father is concerned, too, I was able to lean on that part of my village too, um, um, for guidance. Obviously, there's some stressful times that happen in there. Things
Yeah.
come up, and you pivot a little bit, like I said, and and you just have to be flexible. But over time, I think people see, and this is a cool thing about families when they see a kid has a spark, like they at least my family, I mean probably yours too. Like they'll nurture it and they'll really encourage it. So a lot of times they was like, they're buying her marker sets and like giving her like buying her fabric and stuff because she was like sewing stuff and making
Yeah.
stuff, and really nurturing her gifts. And as a as parents, that was a lot of encouragement. But then there's also like take it with a grain of salt kind of comments and things that were given to us, where you kind of go, okay, yeah, that's good advice, but maybe not advice for me.
Yeah.
And you don't know it until a little bit later. You kind of like, I've been trying that thing and it ain't been working. So that was it was. I appreciate them telling me that, but I'm gonna do something a little different. But
Yeah.
we've had a good we've got a good village over the time, over time, and
Right.
yeah, I think I answered your question.
No, you did. You did. You explained how that looked and how they showed up.
Hmm.
Um, in you guys raising your daughter. So you just revealed to the room. I saw on social media,
Hmm.
but you have a son on the way.
Yeah. Yep.
Um,
Yep. Yep.
so that's opened it up. I have my structured questions, but I want to dive into that. Like, what is be careful because you got you at home, I'm over here, but but what is that like real feeling of like, okay, I'm 10 years in, new baby? Was it a plan? You know what I'm saying? If
Yeah. I mean,
you
it,
know, personal.
I
And
was. Go
okay,
ahead. No, no, go ahead.
you go.
No, no. Say the rest of your question. I want to make sure I catch up.
Um, and then what is it? What are your like your in I guess real time because you in the moment. Like thoughts and things of starting anew. I won't even say starting over because it continues, but starting anew. What are those
Yeah.
things that you're hoping?
It's funny because I think on one hand, you do have that mentality of, okay, we are starting over, but then you realize it's not the same. It's not the same circumstances. Lots of things have changed.
Yeah.
Financially, we're in a different place. Familially, we are in a different place. Um, we have a 10-year-old that'll be 11 when the little boy is here,
Mhm.
and we have you know help from family, and there's a lot of things that have changed. So the stress of like doing it the first time was like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Like you don't know where help is coming because you don't even know you need help in certain areas.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But now like knowing that it's kind of like it's kind of like going into I don't know, like into an event or something for the first time. Let's say like you got to perform for the first. You never been in this venue before. You don't know how the mic is oriented on the stage. You don't know what your background singer is gonna sound like. But you going and you super anxious about it. But you go and then you kill. Or let's say you don't kill. You just get through it. And
Yeah.
it wasn't bad. It wasn't good, but it went bad. Um, you made it. Like it was some positives to be had from it.
Yeah.
So the next time you got to do it, you're like, oh shit, okay, I know the microphone's over here. So if I stand like this and then I tell my background singers to come over to the left a little bit, I can hear them, and I got my inner ears because the piano gonna be, like you kind of know certain things. You still don't know all the intangibles, but like you at least got a game plan. So like from that aspect, like we're like, dang, we kind of old now. But like it also is like with that comes wisdom, so
Yeah.
like it's different ways. And I was talking to one of my we talk about talking to your peers who are
Yeah.
fathers. He was like they're professional. He and his wife are professionals too, and just had a kid. And he was like, look, man, we about working smarter, not harder over here. And he was just naming all the stuff that they're using. And I was like, oh shoot, I didn't even know they had that.
That's
So,
what's up.
having that part too is a lot of like relief. But then you start to doing the math in your head. You're like, damn, I'll be 50 when they turn 10. I'm gonna be 60 something when they get out of, So like you start doing that, and it can be a little daunting.
Mm.
But again, I've really been pressing on like speaking life. Like, I feel young. I'm gonna stay young. I'm gonna eat right. I'm gonna do what I'm supposed to do.
That's right.
I have an obligation to my family. I lost, two parents to health issues and several other family members to both mental and physical ailments. So I'm not gonna let those things. At least I'm not consciously gonna let those things be something that bother me or
Yeah.
that affect my family. So I'm gonna work on those things and make sure I'm here as long as I can be, as long as God is willing and Lord is willing. And I'm gonna be good to myself and to the people around me so that I can, be a good example and also make this second time around not as the first time wasn't super challenging. It's just not,
It was
let's say
doable.
relieve some of the challenges that we might have
Yeah.
had the first time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's up. I love that. That was beautiful. And just all I heard through that is just optimism. Like
Yeah.
it's like nah, we got this. I ain't tripping. We got it. Um.
Yeah. We go back and forth now. Like sometimes, Tiff would be like, she'll be like super excited about one thing. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I don't really want to do all that. Or I might be like super optimistic and she like, yeah, but we gotta do this thing when they get this age. And I'm like, oh shit, I didn't even think about that. So like it goes back and forth. But that's the cool thing about having a team is just like your task is to always at least have a level morale. We both can't be down.
Yeah.
And if we are, one of us has to rebound pretty quickly so that it doesn't bring the whole house down.
Yeah.
And that's my daughter included at this point because now she's mature enough to know that her behavior and her aura, without lack of better without with lack of better words, is important
Yeah.
to the whole house.
Yeah. Nice. No, I won't bring that. All right. So, what are things that you do to, kind of in a way, is like pinch yourself, say, okay, I make time for me, like Dexter the man, within all of these roles, from work to the
Mm,
household. I'm still here.
mm.
Have you been able to kind of create spaces for that, or kind of
Yeah, I'm a simple dude. I say I'm simple. Tiff she always laugh when I say that. She's like, "You're not simple."
no.
I'm actually pretty complicated in terms of like emotional, social, but as far as like what makes me happy,
Mhm.
um, pretty simple. So like, you know, I'm a creative, so like sitting down and creating anything, I can't really be sitting and not doing anything. I'll fall asleep. It's just I can't. I can't just sit and watch TV especially if it's nighttime. If it's 7:30 and I'm watching a movie, I'm gone. I'm asleep. So I got to be doing something. Especially if I'm creating. I'm like my attention is is at alert. So like I enjoy spending time with my brother. Um, you know, at this point, before I realized I'm gonna have a son, testosterone was few and far between. So I had to go see my brother, I had to go see my nephew, I had to go, like talk to my boys, you know, because it was like I'm in the house with, my mother-in-law's here, Tiff's here, obviously, Corey's here.
Yeah.
And then when Tiff's sister's in town, she's here, and then I got my aunts, and then this is the first boy. There are two boys in Corey's generation, and then I think that's as far as me and Tiff's family is concerned, is my brother. But then it's like all girls. Like at least it's like as far as like immediate family is concerned, close
Yeah.
family.
That's how we are. A lot of girls.
Yeah. So that part of it has always been challenging, but it's always been a lesson too. And in my mind, I was like, God, if you let me have a boy, I guess I realized I must have learned you must realize I learned my lesson. There's a lot that I had to learn about women and being around women. So like part of, like you said, taking care of myself is knowing the differences and what I need, and actually being able to, go and get that. Like whether it be like exercising or just like shooting the breeze. I was gonna say shooting the shit, but like shooting the breeze with my brother.
Cursive, it's okay.
And just okay, just like get that. Yeah, society make it so hard for me because I keep thinking about Cameron and made somebody saying pause when I say it, but like get
Yes.
that, like that male interaction, is
Yeah.
necessary. So like that's kind of what I know I need when it's time for me to have my time.
That's
It's
what's
like
up.
whether it be like getting on a headset and playing the game or something like that, or going out with my brother or something like that. So
That's what's up. Awesome. Is there anything before we come to a close that you would and will and could please leave the room with, um, to either the community as a whole or father specifically?
I mean, yeah, my biggest thing in my journey is you gotta learn yourself, and I think it behooves you to do it before you decide to have kids. But obviously, especially when you have kids, you got to know yourself, and that's not just saying, I know my limits, I know I want to do this, or I know I want to do not just what you want to do and what you like to do and what makes you tick, but like know you. Going back to what I said earlier, you need somebody in your life that's going to ask you questions that no one would ever ask you, or no one would think to ask you. And then you have to honestly answer those questions. No holds barred, like not being afraid to actually know the truth to the questions, and that goes, like I said, to going to breaking those quote unquote family curses, is realizing it may be taboo in your circle to say, yeah, mom and dad didn't do everything right. But if it's the truth, you got to say it. Or if you uh from the world's eye had a great childhood, but to you had a traumatic childhood, you got to say that. Yeah, my childhood is traumatic. And this is not to say this is me, but I mean, people out there who are listening,
Yeah.
don't let somebody else tell you what you experience. I think you got to be honest about it to yourself, and don't wear a mask, because then you can really um explore parenthood. You're not just a parent, you can actually explore it, and you can do all the things that makes you the parent that your kid needs. I don't think there's a such thing as a good, or well, it is a such thing as a bad parent. But you know what I mean? Like a
Yeah.
parent that has intention is always a good parent. So,
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you
good
so.
intention.
Did it right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, with good intention.
Hmm.
I love that. I love that. That's a beautiful close. Um, Thank you. Thank you so much, Dex,
Yeah, of
for
course.
rolling in here and doing this episode. For this being, one of our shoot more recent conversations, like long conversations.
It really has, yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for being here on my platform, on this platform, and for opening up and bearing yourself, and being just open and vulnerable.
Hmm.
Um, I love it.
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, I enjoyed it. I appreciate you, like I said, having me. Sometimes I probably go back and listen to this and be like, dang, I was talking a lot, but like I
That's
think
me.
you don't
That's me
realize it
too.
when you until you actually start talking about a subject. How how much you actually do think about that thing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, the idea of being someone's dad is still a surreal thing to me, and now being times two. But as much as I think about it, I appreciate you allowing me to muse on it a little bit and to talk about it.
Yeah. You are welcome. From here, you guys will hear another voice, from the generation before us, Dex, our parents.
Oh yeah, most necessary.
Yeah, and yeah, let's get into it.